Kentucky. Like, what should the level of concern be in Big Blue Nation, Rob, now that you're down low and you don't really know when Jaden Quaintance is going to come back? You hope it's sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I think Jaden is going to be back at some point, probably early to mid-December is the best case scenario for him getting back. I don't think they want to push it with a guy that grew in the offseason, that is 7 foot, that is 18 years old, and that is dealing with lower leg problems. Just let him come back and be fine. You want him for March. January and December don't really matter. March is what matters in the state of Kentucky. For Jalen Lowe, like this seems like a situation not all that dissimilar to what Lamont Butler dealt with last year, where they know what the injury is to the shoulder. They know that it's going to require surgery to fix it at some point. And the decision is, do you battle through the season and try to make it through the year playing as well as you can? Or do you shut it down now, get the surgery, and get yourself ready for next year? And it feels like that's the kind of decision that's going to get made by the staff or by Jalen Lowe. Like, do they want to put him through that? Does he want to try to find a way to get an extra year of eligibility if he can get an injury red shirt? But without him, I honestly don't know if that ends up being that big of an impact. And the reason I say that is Mark Pope's offense is at its best when the ball is popping around, right? When it's moving, when it's swinging, when you're running it through a big guy that can kind of distribute at the 5, when you got the Amari Williams roll, throwing back doors all over the place, you got guys running off of screens. And Jalen Lowe is a point guard that needs the ball in his hands to be effective. Like, he is get out of the way, put him in a ball screen, let him go try to create, have some action on the weak side, and let him go find somebody and let him go make a play. And I don't think that those two things necessarily work perfectly together. And if you're going to tell me that, yeah, Denzel Aberdeen is going to step into more of a point guard role, and you got Jasper Johnson, who played a little bit on the ball when he was in high school, and Otega Owe can step over and take a little bit of a bigger role there. I think that is something that is fine and might actually be better long-term than Jalen Lowe playing at 75. Does that make sense? Like, if you're not going to get Jalen Lowe at his absolute best, then let him shut it down. Maybe you get him for another year, and you have other guys that can kind of step into that role that might be better fits for the system as a whole, and that might be better for Kentucky overall.
I don't know, man. I disagree. I think if he thinks he can go, and he can contribute, because the most valuable thing in this world is talent, in basketball or in business. Mm-hmm. And that dude has a lot of talent, and he does have a unique talent relative to that roster, to your point, Rob. He does things differently with the ball in his hands. Evidence when he came into the game against Louisville, where they had 2 lobs right away and hit it in the 3.
Yeah, true.
He comes in and he gives them something different than they already have. He gives them a guy that wants to have the ball in his hands, can make something happen, can facilitate. So, yes, it may not be the traditional lead guard that Mark Pope's teams have had, but it doesn't mean Mark can't make it work and work with him to work. Now, the problem is if you can't play through most of the preseason or part of the preseason, or you missed some of the times there, and you missed the early games where the lights are on and the critics are there and you adjust to that pressure, you miss some of those things. That affects the growth of him and the team gelling together. So this is obviously not going to help them. I think he can give them something different. If he can go, and he wants to go, then you'll take 75% of Jalen Lowe. And I think you find a way for which he impacts the game. And it may be like the Louisville game. You come off the bench, you give him a different look, and maybe it's 15 to 20 minutes a game. And maybe that's what he can give you. And maybe that's enough in that role for them to be successful and for them to find a spot where he really changes the game for them. If he can't, then obviously shut it down. But I played with a couple guys that tore, same year too, 3 different dudes tore their labrum and played through the year. It was brutal for them, though. They hated it, and it was really hard, but they knew as soon as you have the surgery, the season's over. So it was they did that, and they played through it. It was all their non-shooting shoulders, which obviously affects the decision as well. But it's I mean, I'm not saying that's the injury. I'm just saying you can play through certain things, and you know you need a surgery. It's really hard to do physically and mentally, but if he can do it and wants to do it, he gives them something different that they don't have.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, what I was going to say is that they had Goodman reported this earlier today. They got some imaging done, and the re-aggravation did not cause any more damage than what happened the first time that he got the injury, which was, I believe, was October 17th in the blue-white scrimmage. So it hasn't been hurt more. It's just not the kind of thing that's going to end up getting better. And I guess bringing him off the bench for 15 or 20 minutes, yes, I hear that point. My counter to your counter would be, if you are Jalen Lowe and you're a senior And if you play less than, 11 games, you get an extra year of eligibility, and you get to make another, I don't know, what would it end up being, like $2 million in NIL, somewhere around there.
Who knows
like,
who knows what it could be for him next year? You never know. You're in the market again. You have no clue.
Yeah. So like, that's what I would say is I would look at the opportunity to get an extra year in college if I'm not, a Mikael Brown kind of a point guard, like level of a point guard when it comes to NBA projections, and say, if I can get an extra year, I might seriously consider shutting this thing down and trying to get myself an extra year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark Pope was searching for answers. I mean, everybody played today. 10 players averaged at least 15 minutes in this game. But he was perplexed as well, searching for some answers. Here's what he said in the post-game presser, guys.
This is just a learning curve. I wish that I'll be really bluntly honest with you guys. I wish I was farther ahead right now. I wish that I was farther ahead with this group. Maybe it's been complicated that I'm trying to figure out why I'm not farther ahead with this group in terms of just this group's identity. There's a lot of contributing factors for sure, but like what I expect from the guys is that they embrace who they are. Like, they're here for a reason. They have very, very special, unique, quantifiable skill sets. And I want them to use them. I want them to like celebrate them. I want them to be proud of them. I want them to love their game.
It's not exactly the type of response I would expect a coach to give after a 46-point win. But you care to read between the lines there, Dallin, as to what Coach Pope is kind of alluding to?
I love Mark Pope's honesty. He's a great coach, and I love he's straight up with you, whether it's on the record or off the record. He just tells you exactly what he's thinking, what he feels, and that's important. It came right there. I mean, Sam, that 46-point victory, he knows that means nothing in the context. He's thinking back to what was Louisville and looking ahead and being like, all right, well, we got, next huge game coming up on Tuesday. We have a massive schedule. We are Kentucky. What are we going to be able to accomplish? And he's doing some self-reflection and being honest with the media right now and saying, I have not found the way to unlock these guys' potential, to make them understand the roles in which they can play to their fullest abilities to help our team. And that is the challenge. When you have this roster that costs, $20 million or whatever it was, a high number, and you got all these different dudes coming in, you're trying to figure this thing out. And there's pressure and there's not much time to do it. And when you have guys in and out of the lineup with injuries, there's all these different issues, as he alluded to by saying, there's some reasons for that. So he's just being honest. That he doesn't think he's done as good a job that he wants to do, but he's trying to figure out why that is and then how to really imbue these guys with confidence to go play in a manner commensurate to what he thinks they can do. And sometimes that's hard to figure out. If you're thinking and not just playing, that's an issue. And it sounds like some of those guys may be doing this right now versus just going. And Owe may be one of the biggest ones in this. Like, that guy could be a first-team All-American. And he looks like he's out there at times, like, just trying to figure it out versus just going and playing like he was the last month of last season.
Yeah, well, I can tell you exactly why they're struggling. It's because their best center and the guy that was going to be their starting center is still coming off of an ACL injury. Otega Owe has not played great. He was terrible in their one big game of the season. He spent the offseason dealing with a toe injury that held him out for, I think it was like 8 weeks. And their starting point guard has a shoulder that won't stay located and keeps getting dislocated. So when you lose your starting one, and you lose like your preseason SEC player of the year in Otega Owe, and you lose a 5-man that could end up being a top 10 pick. Yeah, you know what? You're not going to look as good as you thought you were going to be when you put the roster together. Like, I think it's just as simple as that. Get healthy, get these guys in a rhythm, and you're going to be able to figure it all out. But you walk into an absolute buzzsaw. Dallin, you've been around long enough. How many buildings can you remember that were as just raw and as emotional and as even like the crowd, like the level of violence that came with the sound with that crowd in Louisville? I don't know if I've ever seen a building that has been as electric as that building was on Tuesday night. And you're asking this group to go in there the first time that they're playing a real game together, like with Owe playing terrible, with your point guard coming off the bench, without your starter 5. Like, I mean, once you get those 3 back to being what they are and what we thought they were going to be, it's a very different conversation. But I don't think we can judge them based off of that game in that moment against their arch rival.